Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMZ, Diwan-e-Ghalib, Meri Zubani. To all our returning viewers, we are very happy you could join us again. And to the new viewers, we are delighted you discovered the podcast and decided to tune in for the first time. Now, if you were with me in the previous episode, you know that currently we are going through Ghazal 23 from Diwan-e-Ghalib, Dar-Khur-e-Qahr-o-Ghazab, Jab Koi Hamsa Na Hua. We've already covered 2 couplets. Today we are going to pick up the 3rd couplet from this ghazal. As always, I'm going to read the couplet and then we are going to get into the translation, the keywords, and finally the impression. So, this is how it goes. सबको मकबूल है, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का. सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, रू-ब-रू कोई बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा ना हुआ. So let's do a quick approximate translation. First line, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का. Everyone accepts and agrees to your claim of oneness and uniqueness. Second line, रू-ब-रू कोई बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा ना हुआ. No idol with a mirror-like countenance has ever come face to face with you. So that is a quick approximate translation. The couplet does have some keywords, so we will get into those before we get into the impression of both the lines. So let's do the keywords of the first line. First word, Maqbul. Now, Maqbul translates to being accepted or being chosen. Sometimes it can also mean receiving something, and it can also mean pleasing. In our couplet, it is about acceptance, accepting something. अब मुनव्वर खान गाफिल का आप ये शेर देखें. सुन के मरने की खबर, सुन के मरने की खबर यार मेरे घर आया. सुन के मरने की खबर यार मेरे घर आया, यानी मकबूल हुई मेरी वफा मेरे बाद. The approximate translation is, on listening to the news of my demise, of my death, my beloved came to my house. And this is how my prayer got accepted. My prayer of her coming to visit me got accepted after I was gone. जोश मलसियानी का ये शेर. मकबूल हो ना हो ये मुकद्दर की बात है. मकबूल हो ना हो ये मुकद्दर की बात है, सजदे किसी के दर पे किए जा रहा हूँ मैं. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, whether they get accepted or not, that depends on my destiny, that depends on my fate. I continue to bow down, kneel down at the door of someone continuously, irrespective whether these bows, these salutations are accepted or not. And last, पीर नसरुद्दीन शाह नासिर का ये शेर. काश मकबूल मेरे दिल की दुआ हो जाए, काश मकबूल मेरे दिल की दुआ हो जाए, एक सजदा दरे मौला पे अदा हो जाए. The approximate translation is, I wish this prayer of my heart, this desire of my heart gets accepted. And what is that prayer? That one salutation, one bow I get to do at the door of the Almighty. Let's move on to the second keyword, Daawaa. Now, Daawaa is not a word we are unfamiliar with. We still use it in our normal everyday language. It means claim, laying a claim on something, staking a claim. And इसके लिए शेख इब्राहिम ज़ौक़ का ये शेर, one of our favorites, we quote it many times. हम नहीं वो जो करें खून का दावा तुझ पर, हम नहीं वो जो करें खून का दावा तुझ पर, बल्कि पूछेगा खुदा भी तो मुकर जाएंगे. One of DGMZ's favorite shares, and the approximate translation is, we are not the ones who will ever lay a claim of murder on you, beloved. We lovers are not the type who will lay a claim of murder on you, beloved. In fact, trust us, even if God was to come down and ask us who killed you, we will just totally avoid taking your name or referring your name or mentioning your name. शुहैब बिन अजीज का ये शेर, दोस्ती का दावा क्या आशिकी से क्या मतलब, दोस्ती का दावा क्या आशिकी से क्या मतलब, मैं तेरे फ़कीरों में मैं तेरे गुलामों में. Another good one. So the approximate translation is, who is interested in making claims of friendship with you? Who is interested in making claims of love on you? I am satisfied being one of the many beggars. I am satisfied being one of the many slaves around you. That is enough. I don't want to make big claims of being a friend or a lover to you. And then the last keyword is yakta. सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का. So yakta or yaktai talks about oneness, right? Uniqueness, being one single copy of something. Right? Incomparable, matchless. Let's explore this word through some couplets. शुरू करते हैं अपने गालिब के शेर से. हम कहाँ के दाना थे, किस हुनर में यकता थे. हम कहाँ के दाना थे, किस हुनर में यकता थे, बेसबब हुआ गालिब, दुश्मन आसमां अपना. So the approximate translation is, who said I was an expert? Who said I was one of my kind? Whoever claimed that I was unique? No one did. But still, for some odd reason, it seems that fate, destiny, stars above, right, have always kind of ployed against me, has always been unfavorable to me. Though I never made claims of being big, unique, matchless, or one and only. लाला माधव राम जौहर का ये शेर, हम इश्क में हैं फर्द तो तुम हुस्न में यकता. हम इश्क में हैं फर्द तो तुम हुस्न में यकता, हम सा भी नहीं एक जो तुम सा नहीं कोई. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is that I am unique in my love and you are matchless in your beauty. There is no one like me and then there is no one like you. शहरयार का ये शेर, मुझको ले डूबा तेरा शहर में यकता होना. मुझको ले डूबा तेरा शहर में यकता होना, दिल बहल जाता अगर कोई भी तुझसा होता. Beautiful couplet. So the approximate translation is, my biggest misfortune is that you are one of your kind. Beloved, you are one and only. You are matchless. This is my biggest fortune, that you are matchless in this whole town. Had there been even one duplicate, one copy like you, life would have been easier for me. So that takes care of the word yakta or yaktai, basically being matchless. No copies, no substitutes, one of its kind. Now, like I was saying, it has a big nuance with reference to Islam. Allah's yaktai, Allah's oneness, Allah's uniqueness is embedded in one of the core principles of Islam called Tawheed. Now, Tawheed is an Arabic word that means making one or asserting oneness. Tawheed is the concept of monotheism in Sharia, declaring God to be one. Tawheed states that there is this belief in Islam in the oneness of Allah, highlighting His uniqueness, sovereignty, and transcendence. Tawheed can be categorized into three groups or three main aspects. Number one, oneness of Allah's lordship. Number two, oneness of Allah's worship. And number three, oneness of Allah's names and attributes. Understanding Tawheed goes beyond mere intellectual acceptance of it. It requires practical implementation in daily life of followers of Islam. Tawheed serves as a shield for followers of Islam against various forms of polytheism, idolatry, and deviation from true path of Islam. So it's very important to know how critical Yakta or Yaktai of God or Allah is with reference to Islam and its core principles. God being Yakta lies at the basis of this core Islamic principle of Tawheed, and all followers of Islam are supposed to follow this. So मौलाना मोहम्मद अली जौहर का ये शेर देखिए, तौहीद तो ये है कि खुदा हश्र में कह दे, तौहीद तो ये है कि खुदा हश्र में कह दे, ये बंदा दो आलम से खफा मेरे लिए है. Beautiful couplet, and the approximate translation is that the ultimate test, the ultimate proof of Tawheed would be that on the day of judgment, God Himself, Allah Himself says that this devotee of mine, this worshipper of mine gave up both the worlds for me, for my oneness, for him to stay true to the Islamic principle of Tawheed. And Alma Iqbal का ये शेर, नक्शे तौहीद का हर दिल पे बिठाया हमने, नक्शे तौहीद का हर दिल पे बिठाया हमने, ज़ेरे खंजर भी ये पैगाम सुनाया हमने. The approximate translation is the sign, the brand, right, the imprint of Tawheed I ensured was on every heart. And even under the shadows of swords and daggers and knives, I continued to propagate the message, the principle of Tawheed. So, with that context, you can understand this yaktai of God Almighty, this oneness, this uniqueness of God is very critical from the Islamic religion perspective. Now, coming to the impression of this first line, we have covered all the keywords. Let's get into the impression. So, clearly in this third couplet, Ghalib is continuing the theme of describing his understanding and his impressions of things connected with God and faith. Now, he starts this first line in a very interesting way. He says, almost as if he's confirming to God that God, everyone agrees to your claim. सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का. अब even before we get into ये दावा है क्या, right, the line comes across like that to you. And it makes you smile, the way Ghalib is talking about God, right? That God is making a claim about himself. And then everybody is agreeing to it. And this couplet, this first line follows the same pattern that we see in the matla. मतले में गालिब अपने बारे में एक दावा कर रहे हैं, राइट. मतले में जब वो कहते हैं कि फिर गलत क्या है कि कोई हमसा पैदा ना हुआ, वो भी एक दावा है. एंड बिल्कुल उसी स्टाइल में अब थर्ड कपलेट में खुदा एक दावा कर रहे हैं. तो मतले में गालिब कर रहे हैं, थर्ड कपलेट में खुदा कर रहे हैं. बट प्यारी बात यह कि गालिब खुदा को इस पोजीशन में डाल लें एकदम एक इंसान की तरह कि भाई दावा करो अपनी किसी एबिलिटी का, एंड आपने किया है वो दावा, एंड हम उस दावे से मकबूल हैं. वी अग्री टू दैट दावा. सो दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग वे गालिब हैज़ आर्टिकुलेटेड दिस फर्स्ट लाइन कि सबको मकबूल है दावा. सो दैट इज़ अबाउट God making a claim and everybody agreeing to it. Now let's move on to what this claim actually is, right? So sabko maqbool hai dawa teri yaktai ka. The claim is about yaktai, oneness. The claim is, God, you are unique in your oneness. There is no one like you. There is no duplicate, no substitute, no backup, nothing. No one can even come close to being something like you. There is no duality in your existence, God. So that is the claim. Now, just for your reference, at DGMZ, we have covered this concept of God's oneness and uniqueness with no room for duality in another ghazal. And there also it is equally and beautifully focused on by Ghalib. Now for today's episode, we will just quote that share and we will quote the translation, but if you want the entire impression of that, feel free to tune into Ghazal 21 part 10. But for today's episode, here is the couplet. उसे कौन देख सकता, उसे कौन देख सकता कि यगाना है वो यकता. उसे कौन देख सकता कि यगाना है वो यकता, जो दुई की बू भी होती, जो दुई की बू भी होती तो कहीं दो चार होता. The approximate translation is, how can anybody see him? He is unique. He is one of his kind. No form, no face. Had there been even a whiff of duality, even a trace of duality in him, we surely would have seen him somewhere. But since we have not, clearly there is not even a whiff, there is not even a trace of duality in him. So this first line, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, it comes across as an ode, right? As a praise Ghalib is submitting for God, right? For God, about God. The sher is dedicated to the hamd o sana of the God Almighty and his yaktai, his oneness, his uniqueness, and like I said, the Islamic principle of Tawheed. Now let's move on to the second line. Let's pick up the keywords. Ruu-Ba-Ruu koi But-e-Aainaa-Simaa na hua. Ruu-Ba-Ruu. Now Ruu-Ba-Ruu is face to face. In front of something, very close, up front with something, and of course it can also mean in the presence or vicinity of something. इब्ने मुफ्ती का ये शेर देखें. हमने देखा है रूबरू उनके, हमने देखा है रूबरू उनके, आईना आईना नहीं होता. Right, so the approximate translation is, I have observed that when it is face to face with her, the mirror ceases to be a mirror. The mirror is not a mirror when face to face with her. अफजल अलाहाबादी का ये शेर. तेरे जलवों को रूबरू करके, तेरे जलवों को रूबरू करके, तुझसे मिलते हैं हम वज़ू करके. Beautiful. So the approximate translation is, when I come in your presence, when I come face to face with you, when I come near you, when I come in front of you, I do all my religious rituals of wuzu, of cleansing, before coming close to you, before coming in your vicinity. That is how precious, that is how pure you are to me. शकील बदायूं का ये शेर, अल्लाह रे बेखुदी की, अल्लाह रे बेखुदी की हम उनके ही रूबरू, अल्लाह रे बेखुदी की हम उनके ही रूबरू, बे इख्तियार उन्हीं को पुकारे चले गए. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, "Oh God, look at my loss of senses. Look at my senselessness, right? Look at my euphoria, that when I was face to face with her, I somehow was still calling out to her. And last one, दाग दहलवी का ये शेर, दिल ले चला है बांध के दिलबर के रूबरू, दिल ले चला है बांध के दिलबर के रूबरू, जाता है एक आसिर सितमगर के रूबरू. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, my heart has once again tied me up and forced me to go and confront the beloved. Go and come face to face with the beloved. It almost seems as if a prisoner, right? A prisoner is being forced to go and confront, go and come face to face with their torturer. So that is Ruu-Ba-Ruu. That is the essence of coming face to face with someone, coming in the vicinity of someone, coming close to someone. Moving on to the next keyword, But. So But is an idol, image, statue, but we know that in Urdu poetry the word But comes with a very, very special nuance. The lover in Urdu poetry often addresses the beloved as But. In Urdu poetry, the beloved is loved by the lover with an intensity and passion that borders on worship and reverence. The type of worship and reverence which is typically reserved for one and only God. The lover, at the risk of committing the sin of But-parasti, known as idol worship, will continue to devote himself in worshipping and revering the beloved. Throughout his life, the lover will walk this fine line between worshipping God versus loving the beloved. And Urdu poetry captures various facets of this in multiple ways. We will explore some of them through some couplets and then move on. बशीर बद्र का ये शेर, बुत भी रखे हैं, बुत भी रखे हैं, नमाजें भी अदा होती हैं, बुत भी रखे हैं, नमाजें भी अदा होती हैं, दिल मेरा दिल नहीं अल्लाह का घर लगता है. Approximate translation is, idols have also resided in it and prayers to Allah have also been recited in it. It seems that my heart is not a heart but a house of God, a house of Allah. शाह नसीर का शेर, खुदा गवाह है मैं शगले बुत परस्ती में, खुदा गवाह है मैं शगले बुत परस्ती में, सिवाय इश्क किसी काम से नहीं वाकिफ. Shagl is an occupation or hobby. So the approximate translation is, God is my witness that while I was in the act of idol worship, while I had that occupation of idol worship, while I was occupied by idol worship, except for love, there was no other task that I did. Nothing else, just love. फना बुलंद शहरी का ये शेर, बुत परस्ती में की मैंने वो बंदगी, बुत परस्ती में की मैंने वो बंदगी, बुत कदे को भी किबला नुमा कर दिया. Very, very lovely couplet. The approximate translation is that in so-called idol worship, right? In my so-called idol worship, I have done a kind of worship where I have made the temple through my worship akin or similar to Kaaba itself. भारत भूषण पंत का ये शेर, 2 दिनों की जिंदगानी कुफ्र क्या इस्लाम क्या, 2 दिनों की जिंदगानी कुफ्र क्या इस्लाम क्या, एक दिन काबे में सजदा बुत परस्ती एक दिन. So this okay, let's do the translation. The life we have is but of 2 days, right? The life we have is but of 2 days. Why get into what is sin and what is Islam, right? What is kufr and what is Islam? Why not spend 1 day in doing sajda at Kaaba and then spend the other day doing idol worship? And whenever in Urdu poetry the shair is talking about idol worship, they are talking about loving the beloved. It's not actually idol worship, it is loving the beloved like God himself. And मिर्ज़ा मोहम्मद हादी अजीज़ लखनवी का ये शेर, मुझको काबे में भी हमेशा शेख, मुझको काबे में भी हमेशा शेख, यादे अयामे बुत परस्ती थी. The approximate translation is, even when I was standing in the most religious place, Kaaba, remember, O wise one, I was reminiscing, I was remembering the days of my idol worship. And again, here, even in the house of God, my thoughts, my focus, my memories were all about loving the beloved, all about doing But Parasti in loving the beloved. And last one, Bashir Badr ka ye sher, सर झुकाओगे तो पत्थर देवता हो जाएगा, सर झुकाओगे तो पत्थर देवता हो जाएगा, इतना मत चाहो उसे वो बेवफा हो जाएगा. The approximate translation is, if you keep worshipping a stone, you will convert it into God. You will convert it into God. Don't love these stone-hearted beloved so much, because that might turn them unfaithful. And this is a very, very beautiful concept, right? That आपने सुना ही होगा, मानो तो पत्थर, मानो तो देवता, ना मानो तो पत्थर, right? And वो शेर याद आ रहा है, झूम के जब रिंदों ने पिला दी, शेख ने चुपके से दुआ दी, तेरी गली में सजदे करके, तेरी गली में सजदे करके हमने इबादत गाह बना दी. तो जब बात शुरू हुई थी तो तेरी गली एक गली थी, like any other गली, but my worship, my continuous worship, my continuous loving you, my continuous revering you has converted that plain street into a mosque, into a place of worship. And that is the power, right? That is the power of worship. That is why एकदम से खुदा के एट पार बिलवेड को रख देता है लवा. बिलवेड ऐसी पैदा नहीं होती हैं. It is the continuous intense love and reverence and worship and faith that the lover is putting in the beloved that continuously keeps rising her up to a point where ultimately she almost comes and sits at par with God. For the lover, she is almost at par with God. Now, moving on to the last keyword in this line, Aainaa-Simaa. Aina is mirror, right? Seema is, if you look at the technical meaning, it will be face, or even more technical, forehead, right? Not the complete face, but specifically the forehead. But Seema can also be used for the complete face, but metaphorically. It is used to talk about the countenance of somebody, right? जिसे हम लोग बात कहते हैं ना, नूर किसी के चेहरे का, किसी के चेहरे की रोशनी, किसी के चेहरे का जलवा, उसको भी आप सीमा मान सकते हैं. एंड आईना सीमा मतलब किसी के चेहरे का जलवा, किसी के चेहरे का नूर जो कि शीशे की तरह चमकता है, बिल्कुल शीशे की तरह चमकदार, प्योर, ट्रांसपेरेंट, ट्रांसलूसेंट एंड रिफ्लेक्टिव, राइट? सो बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा जब कह रहे हैं तो एक आइडल जिसका फेस शीशे की तरह है. But sticking to Aina-Sima, right? So Aina-Sima means having a radiant face with such a glow that it shines like a mirror. It shines like a mirror. Now, इस word को explore करने के लिए let's start with a share from Ghalib himself, because that will give us great clues into how he uses this word. So here is the couplet from Ghalib. सच कहते हो खुद-बीन और खुद आरा हूँ, ना क्यों हूँ. सच कहते हो खुद-बीन और खुद आरा हूँ, ना क्यों हूँ, बैठा है बुत-ए-आइना सीमा मेरे आगे. So the approximate translation is, you are right. You are right when you say that I have suddenly become self-conscious and self-adorning, right? Khud-Biin, Khud-Ara. We covered that in the last episode, right? So Ghalib says, yes, you're absolutely right that I have suddenly turned into someone who is become very self-conscious about how they look, how they have adorned themselves. Na kyun hu? Why shouldn't I be like that? After all, बैठा है बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा मेरे आगे. There is somebody sitting Ruu-Ba-Ruu, right? Face to face with me, who has a face that glows like a mirror. तो अब जब मेरे आगे कोई बैठा है face to face, जिसका चेहरा शीशे की तरह दमक रहा है, तो अब मुझे तो अपना रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है ना उसमें. और अब आप शीशे में अपने आप को देखोगे तो फिर थोड़ा बहुत एडजस्टमेंट तो करेंगे ना, थोड़ा बहुत तो अपना देखेंगे ना कैसे लग रहे हैं, कैसे दिख रहे हैं, थोड़ा कॉन्शियसली अपने को असेस करेंगे. अपना रिफ्लेक्शन तो आपको पता है हम लोग कितना उसको क्रिटिकली असेस करते हैं. तो बड़ा प्यारा शेर है एंड इससे हमको बहुत अच्छी तरह पता चलता है हाउ गालिब इज यूजिंग आईना सीमा, दैट व्हेन यू आर फेस टू फेस विद समवन सो ब्यूटिफुल that their face shines like a mirror, then what actually happens is you're not seeing their face. You actually see your face in their face, because their face is like a mirror. So you see yourself. And that is something very critical to keep in mind, because it will play heavily into the overall impression of this couplet. Moving on. For Aina Sima, Mohsin Dar-Bamgi का एक शेर. I didn't spell that correctly. Pronounce that correctly. Let me try one more time. Mohsin Dar-Bhangvi. Yes, Mohsin Dar-Bhangvi का ये शेर. दुई ऐसी मिटी आखिर की अब आईने के बदले. दुई ऐसी मिटी आखिर की अब आईने के बदले, तुझी को ए बुत-ए-आइना सीमा देख लेता हूँ. The approximate translation is, the duality was erased in such a way from my life that now, instead of looking at myself in a mirror, I simply go to you and come face to face with you. Because your face is like a mirror. I can see myself in you. So that takes care of all the key words in the second line, Ruu-Ba-Ruu, But, Aina, Sima. Let's get into the impression. Now, while we were creating the impression for this second line, we decided we are going to do the impression through two approaches. Now, we will pick the first approach and then move on to the second one. So, in the first approach, the assumption that one makes is that the first line and the second line are connected with because of which, इसके मारे. So, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकदाई का और इसके मारे रूबरू कोई बुते आईना सीमा ना हुआ. Because of course गालिब की गज़ल है, right? तो clearly तो कुछ लिखा नहीं है, right? There is no clear word that says the first line happens and the second line happens because of the first line. बस दो लाइनें हैं, उनको आप कैसे कनेक्ट करते हो वो आपका इंटरप्रिटेशन है. सो एट DGMC पहला अप्रोच हम लेंगे कि वी विल कनेक्ट दोज टू लाइन्स विद बिकॉज ऑफ विच. सो खुदा आपका दावा यकताई का सबको एक्सेप्टेबल है एंड इस यकताई के मारे रूबरू कोई बुते आईना सीमा ना हुआ. As we discussed some time back when going through the word but, the lover in Urdu poetry reveres and worships the beloved with similar intensity and fervor that is reserved for loving God. For the lover, the beloved is his God. Loving the beloved is his religion. Loyalty to the beloved is his faith. For the lover, the closest thing to God that he knows is the beloved. There is nothing bigger or better in a lover's life that he can consider equal to or at par with Almighty God. Now, in the second line, Ghalib actually is paying the biggest possible respect a lover can pay to God when he confirms that even someone as pure, as surreal, as ruhani, as revered, as angelic as the beloved has never ever had the privilege to come face to face with God. Even the beloved, with all these credentials, with the fact that the lover considers the beloved at par with God, even that beloved does not have the credentials to be allowed to come face to face with God. उनका वो शेर याद आ रहा है, ये परी चेहरा लोग कैसे हैं, गम जाओ इश्वाओ अदा क्या है, right? So just to reiterate the fact, the translation is, who are these fairy-like, angel-faced people? And what are their styles? What are these glances they send away? So basically, beloved is somebody the lover almost treats as an angel, a fairy. And per this couplet that we are addressing today, even the beloved is not allowed to come face to face with God. So that is the first approach to the impression, where we assume that sabko maqbool hai dawa teri yaktai ka, and because of this Ruu-Ba-Ruu koi but-e-Aainaa-Simaa na hua. Let's move on to the second approach. For the second approach, we will assume that both the lines of the couplet are connected with because, never, ever. So, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, because never ever has Ruu-Ba-Ruu koi but-e-Aainaa-Simaa na hua. So we have already established that the one single thing known to Ghalib, which he puts at par with God, is the beloved, who in this couplet Ghalib addresses as but-e-Aainaa-Simaa, an idol with a face with countenance, with noor that is as radiant as mirror itself. In this second approach, we assume the first line of this couplet only happens because the second line of the couplet has never happened. सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, because never ever has there been a situation where Ruu-Ba-Ruu But-e-Aainaa-Simaa hota. In a hypothetical scenario where the second line would happen, that is, God would come Ruu-Ba-Ruu with a But-e-Aainaa-Simaa, with the beloved who has face like a mirror. In a hypothetical scenario where the second line would happen, then in that scenario, the first line would not be possible. That claim would not hold true. Because imagine what would happen, right? God would come face to face with a beloved whose face is like a mirror. And in such a situation, God would not see the beloved's face. God would see his own face. Right? Beloved would reflect back God's face to him. तभी गालिब ने कोई और नहीं रखा रूबरू, राइट? कोई और इंसान नहीं रखा रूबरू, क्योंकि कोई और इंसान अगर खुदा के रूबरू होगा तो खुदा को उस इंसान का चेहरा दिखेगा. गालिब ने कपलेट में खुदा के रूबरू किया है बुत-ए-आईना-सीमा, एक बिलवेड जिसका चेहरा शीशे की तरह है. एंड जब ये होगा तो खुदा अपना चेहरा खुद देखेंगे बिलवेड के चेहरे में. He will see his own reflection. And as soon as he sees his reflected image, as soon as he sees his reflection in the face of the beloved, duality will happen. There will exist now two copies of God. One is God and one is his reflection. And that will nullify the claim of yaktai, of oneness. So this second approach is very interesting, right? Like I said, दोनों लाइनों में ये तो क्लियर नहीं होता है कि is it the first approach that Ghalib means or is it the second approach? दोनों are possible. It is Ghalib's couplet. Probably there are 3-4 more approaches which we are not aware of, right? But the second approach is very interesting, where it seems that Ghalib is saying, हाँ, in the current time, सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, किसी को तेरे इस दावे पे कोई शक नहीं है खुदा. यू आर द ओनली वन, जस्ट वन एंड ओनली. बट ये हो रहा है क्योंकि रूबरू कोई बुते आईना सीमा ना हुआ. बिकॉज गॉड, दिस क्लेम ऑफ यकताई only holds true because you have not yet come face to face with But-e-Aainaa-Simaa. And यहाँ पर we would like to quote a share from one of our valued viewers who shared the couplet in the comments, but I could not find the shayar for this share or the source. So if you could please let us know in comments who is the shayar, what is the source of this share. But here is the share. इसलिए तस्वीरें जाना हमने बनवाई नहीं, इसलिए तस्वीरें जाना हमने बनवाई नहीं, एक से जब दो हुए तो लुत्फ़े तन्हाई नहीं. Captures the essence of what we are discussing, right? As soon as you create a copy, whether it be through a photograph or whether it be through a reflection, as in our couplet, you are bringing in the element of duality and you are eliminating the element of oneness, of uniqueness. यहाँ पे तन्हाई is equivalent to one, by one's self. So, in this second approach to DGMZ impression, Ghalib is creating a scenario where he is telling God that God, yes, your claim to oneness has been accepted by everyone. No one currently challenges it. But, खुदा, कभी अगर आप बैठ गए रूबरू किसी बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा के, कभी अगर आप बैठ गए रूबरू किसी बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा के, तो ये यकताई का दावा मकबूल करवाना शायद इतना आसान नहीं होगा. ये दावा इतना आसान नहीं होगा because you will inevitably create an image of yourself. You will create a second image of yourself. You will create a reflection of yourself. So God, the first line will continue undisputed till the day you come face to face with my beloved. Now, whether you interpret the sher per the first approach or you interpret the sher per the second approach, you have to marvel. You have to marvel at Ghalib's dexterity and style as he manages to praise both God and the beloved simultaneously, parallelly, emphasizing the fact that though he agrees to the ultimate Almighty, he also, being a lover, glorifies the power of the beloved. The impact of her countenance, the impact of her noor, But-e-Aainaa-Simaa, एक ऐसी क्वालिटी बिलवेड की जो कि जब आपके रूबरू होती है, it reflects you back to you. It shows you back to you. And इसके बहुत metaphysical interpretations भी हैं, but we will not get into that today. For today, this is enough. This is enough. कि खुदा जिस दिन आप रूबरू मेरी बिलवेड के आ गए, उस दिन ये यकताई का दावा मकबूल करवाना शायद इतना आसान नहीं होगा. Okay, so that brings us to the end of सबको मकबूल है दावा तेरी यकताई का, रूबरू कोई बुत-ए-आइना-सीमा ना हुआ. I hope you enjoyed the impression. Let us know via the comments. We are always very keen to hear how the impression sat with you, right? Now, as always, for any new viewers, a strong recommendation to go through the episode titled Introduction to DGMZ, because it will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. What are we trying to do here after all? Feel free to visit the homepage of the channel. It has multiple playlists segregated by topics. Surf through it and pick the episodes that interest you. Now, I'm going to end this episode. I'm sending a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.